For the first time in a long time, there are tangible reasons for cautious optimism. 2026 could potentially be the year of just and lasting peace for Ukraine. A columnist for The Telegraph writes about this in his column, Hamish de Breton-Gordon. According to the Analyst, Donald Trump's public statements, in which he claims that the peace agreement on Ukraine is supposedly already about 95% complete, have apparently caused a rather nervous and noticeable reaction in Moscow. It manifested itself, as usual, in the typical Kremlin style, through deliberate, blatant disinformation and highly unlikely propaganda narratives, he stated. A vivid example was the report that earlier this week one of President Vladimir Putin's numerous and extravagant palaces was allegedly attacked by drones, which seems quite telling in this particular context. The Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, informed the President of the United States that this was almost certainly a so-called false flag operation. This is a clumsy and ambiguous attempt to derail the peace process, which is quickly slipping out of the Kremlin's control. Even more painful and difficult for Putin is that his own population is now increasingly beginning to doubt this particular version of events. When propaganda collapses within a country, regimes soon follow, notes Breton-Gordon. At the same time, Putin realizes that the only tool of influence he has left is to try to drive a wedge between Trump and Zelensky. However, Trump is now significantly less susceptible to Kremlin manipulations than he was just a few short weeks ago. According to the commentator, this is precisely what is steering the White House toward a peace option that may be far from ideal for Ukraine, but at the same time is much more painful for Moscow. As the author emphasizes, the extremely important fact is that the United States and NATO security guarantees are specifically designed for a period of 15 years, which essentially means full protection from the alliance. An even more alarming signal for the Kremlin was Trump's open discussion of the possibility of deploying Western troops on Ukrainian territory. This is the worst-case scenario for Putin. No manipulation, even at the very height of the Kremlin's powerful propaganda machine, could possibly disguise such an outcome as anything other than a clear and undeniable defeat. With a stalled and frozen front line, it would be Trump, not Putin, engaged in negotiations with Kyiv over access to rare earth mineral deposits in the Donbass. If you add to this the increased likelihood of reparations being paid, as well as the potential seizure of frozen Russian assets, then Russia's economy, which is already in decline, looks increasingly unstable, the expert emphasizes. In addition, two more factors will significantly strengthen Washington's position. Firstly, Russia now realizes that its armed forces are incapable of standing up to NATO, even without the direct involvement of the United States. Secondly, against the backdrop of oil prices falling below $60 per barrel, the financial resources fueling Russia's war machine are being rapidly depleted. Without money, the war simply comes to a halt. The CIA has effectively deprived the president of the ability to see through the Kremlin's deception. Now Trump has Putin firmly by the throat, the expert emphasizes. Concerns about a possible nuclear escalation still remain. However, the Kremlin's traditional nuclear threats have almost disappeared over the past few weeks. And according to the Analysts, this is far from a coincidence. Moscow has simply realized that nuclear blackmail no longer impresses European leaders. For the first time in many years, there are real grounds for cautious yet genuine optimism. If Trump continues to put pressure on Putin and European NATO countries continue to rebuild real military strength, the only condition the Kremlin respects, then 2026 could bring Ukraine a just and lasting peace.